One of the biggest and most appealing investment options for a SAFS and a SIPP is to invest in commercial property. Not residential property, that comes with a tax charge, but commercial property is an allowable investment for a tax-approved pension scheme. So the pension scheme accumulates funds from contributions and from transfers in, and so there's a pension pot then available to be used to buy commercial property. The pension fund operates in the same way as any other purchaser of commercial property, and that the pension fund itself, as a legal entity, will become the buyer of the commercial property, will use its own funds to buy the property. It can also borrow monies into the pension fund to actually be used to purchase the property, subject to limits. But the property itself then would be owned by the pension plan, essentially by the trustees of the pension scheme. So on the legal title of the property, you would expect to see X, Y and Z as trustees of Mr. Smith's pension fund. So the pension fund itself will buy the property, will own the property. The great thing with pensions and SIPPs in particular is that a lot of business owners will set up a SIPP or a SAS to actually buy a commercial premises from which their own business can operate. So their own business will then sit in the commercial property as the tenant, or they will have to pay rent under a commercial lease. Because of the linked nature of the members and involved here, so if it's your own pension pot that you're using to buy the commercial property and your own business then is actually sitting as the tenant within that commercial property, there is a link there, they're linked individuals. And so the revenue need to see that there's a commerciality to the transaction. And so what it will say is that you have to put a commercial lease in place, that a commercial level of rent has to be paid to make sure that you're not giving any advantage either to the member by allowing them to pay a low level of rent for this property, or equally an advantage to the pension scheme by trying to get more money into it by the member paying rent at way above market levels. So the member or the tenant anyway will pay a market level of rent into the pension scheme. If the pension scheme has borrowed monies to purchase the property, then that rent will be used firstly to pay off that borrowing, but then any residual monies held will be accumulating as an asset sitting within the pension scheme. So in this way you can very easily, you can build up a pot of money by receiving the rent into the pension scheme, and that pot of money then at retirement is used to pay you your retirement benefits, so it works very well. Commercial property purchase within a pension scheme, in the same way that you would have if you were buying commercial property otherwise, will suffer legal charges. So you will have to get a solicitor to do the conveyancing of the property. There might be stamp duty payable depending on the value of the property. There might be bank charges payable if you are using borrowing monies from a bank in order to facilitate the property purchase. And there'll also be some other professional fees involved as well. So funding is very important. What value of pot do you have within your pension, and what amount of property essentially can you buy? So if you had £100,000, you've got to bear in mind the fact that you might have you'll have legal charges payable on that as well. You might want to borrow monies in order to increase the amount of funds that are available to purchase property, but then that will typically increase the amount of fees that you're paying. Stamp duty needs to be borne in mind as well. VAT will also be payable on some properties, so that needs to be very carefully investigated so that you've got a very clear idea when you make this decision to purchase a commercial property of what all the costs will actually be and of how much it will cost you actually to buy this investment. A lot of pension funds are established and members contributing to a pension fund with the sole purpose of purchasing commercial property because of the benefits to themselves in terms of the rent receivable, and also to their business in that their business then has a property that essentially they're in control of through their pension plan. So that all works very well. If you're looking at holding commercial property within SASs as well, you've got the multi-member arrangements and benefits of having actually a multi-member pot essentially that owns this commercial property. So if mother and father, for example, own the commercial property and then they're bringing in the children, essentially the benefits of that commercial property to the business don't get broken up at the point that the members decide to take benefits or the parents decide to take benefits, because there's no need to sell that commercial property from within the pension environment to pay out benefits. Selling a commercial property is a commercial decision, as indeed it would be if you were owning it personally or through your business. but the pension scheme rules won't typically prompt any other considerations that need to be borne in mind. So you're holding a property within a tax relievable pension arrangement, which is great. Rent paid by your business in is relievable within the business as a commercial expense, which is great as well. There's no, within the pension fund, I say, because it's a tax-free environment, you don't pay any interest on any growth of the capital value of that pension fund. So there's no CGT payable. If the pension decided to sell that property, you have no CGT considerations whatsoever. And that's obviously a big benefit to holding it within a pension fund as opposed to not.